I never thought my own son would laugh at me like I was some foolish old woman with pennies in her purse and no purpose left. It was the laugh that broke me open. Jason leaned back on my couch, beer in hand, legs sprawled like he owned the place, and said with that smug little grin, "You don't need to worry about money. That's what family is for." The way he said it, slow, smug, like he was explaining the weather to a toddler. I reached for the remote with trembling fingers, more from shock than age, and he noticed. He mimicked my hand, the tremble, the hesitation, and chuckled like it was all so cute, like watching Grandma try to keep up. I smiled, because if I showed the rage clawing at my throat, he'd know he'd won. He sipped his beer and changed the subject like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just shoved a knife between my ribs and smiled through it. He started talking about Lily's tuition again, about how his hands are tied now that he's not getting bonuses, how he might need to tap into the account soon just to keep things level. I sat there on the same couch I bought when he was still in diapers and nodded like a good old mother. The helpless kind, the generous kind, the kind who leaves doors unlocked. But he didn't know something very important. He didn't know I'd gotten a phone call a week ago. And he didn't know that by the time his birthday came, I would be holding the match to the bridge he built out of my trust. And this time, I would be the one walking away. It was exactly 7 days earlier, September 2nd. The bank's number flashed on my caller ID while I was slicing carrots, and I almost didn't answer. It felt like one of those routine fraud check calls. But when I picked up, the woman's tone was different, calm but formal. "Ms. Ward, we're just confirming you remain the sole owner on these accounts," she said. Then she began listing them, all of them. I stopped slicing. My hand hovered over the cutting board. "Wait, Jason's name isn't listed anywhere?" "No, ma'am," she said. "There are no joint account holders, no power of attorney, and no secondary beneficiaries listed." She read off the confirmation code, 78A9. I hung up and sat down hard on the kitchen stool. The counter still smelled faintly of the lavender oil Jason's wife had insisted on using last time they were over, claiming my old wood polish smelled like death. But it was this moment, this ordinary, sterile call, that shifted something inside me. Jason didn't know. He didn't know he had nothing. He thought he was coasting toward my funeral, like a slow inheritance cruise. Probably thought of me as his soft landing when things fell apart again. But he was wrong. That call didn't make me sad. It made me feel clear, like a fog lifting. I'd spent too long believing their kindness came from love, when it had always come from assumption. I'd kept the accounts in my name for simple reasons, habit, fear, and a little guilt. But now, hearing it spoken out loud by someone who didn't know me at all, I realized how rare that power was. And I was not going to waste it. I didn't jump straight to war. Not yet. Instead, I let myself take inventory, not of money, but of memory. The little trespasses, the quiet thefts. The first time I noticed my gas tank half empty when I hadn't driven. The new scratches on the bumper of my car, which Jason swore were already there. The Home Depot charge for $842.16 that he insisted was a, quote, family expense. And the worst one? The way he spoke to people about me. "Mom's got plenty saved," I overheard him say once at a barbecue, laughing with his buddy Mark. "She'll cover Lily's tuition. We just need to keep her alive long enough." Alive long enough. Like I was livestock. Like my savings had a ticking clock. That line, I tried to forget it. But it came roaring back. After the beer, after the remote, after the smirk. That night, after he left, I stood in the laundry room folding towels with mechanical care. It hit me how careful I'd become. Folding towels was something I could still control. I couldn't control how often he let himself into my house with his spare key. I couldn't control how he asked for help, always as if it were temporary, but never paid back a single cent. I couldn't control the way his wife looked at me, like she was already making mental notes about the furniture she'd keep. But I could control one thing: the accounts, the will. The legacy. It wasn't rage anymore. It was something colder, calmer, harder. That smirk at dinner, that was the final straw. They'd been borrowing time. Now I was about to show them what it feels like when the clock runs out. People assume if you bake casseroles and wear cardigans, you don't know how to defend yourself, that you confuse password with passcode, that you think a will is something made once and forgotten. Let them assume. I let Jason believe I was naive. Let him believe I was just some soft old woman sitting on a nest of money she didn't know how to protect. Let him keep talking, joking, borrowing, spending, because I knew what he didn't. I spent 30 years working in payroll, auditing for a regional bank. I could read a ledger like some women read recipes. I knew the difference between authorized user and joint account holder. I knew what a forged signature looked like. And I knew exactly how to take someone off an account without a single argument, legally, permanently, and without warning. But I also knew not to act alone. I needed someone who understood elder law and wouldn't treat me like a sad case. So I called Helen Park. She was an attorney who ran a small elder law clinic down on Main Street. We'd met a few months back when she gave a workshop at the senior center titled, Your Money, Your Terms. She had the kind of mind that could cut through fog, and the kind of voice that made you sit up straighter without knowing why. I called at 8:05 the next morning. She answered before the second ring. Mrs. Ward? Of course I remember you. Bring the account documents and the bank confirmation. I'll make time. I had the folder ready within the hour. When I stepped into her office, neat, quiet, with a painting of mountains behind her desk, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not anger, not fear. Authority. Let's get to work, Helen said, already pulling out a notary stamp. We'll start with access. Then we talk trust accounts, beneficiary redesignation, and incident documentation. Jason thought I didn't have a plan, but that's because he didn't know I was never playing defense. This wasn't about revenge. Not exactly. It was about correction. About taking something back that had slowly, quietly been stolen, piece by piece, smile by smile, signature by signature. Helen sat across from me, yellow legal pad in hand, her pen moving fast. We keep this simple and airtight, she said. No emotional language, just action. I nodded. She got it. Here was the plan. Step 1, eliminate Jason's legal access. Not just to my checking accounts, to everything. That meant removing him as authorized user on credit cards, freezing all cards not in my possession, and logging every transaction for the past 6 months. Helen would file a notice with the bank's Fraud and Compliance Division, a paper trail. Step 2, secure the funds. We'd move the bulk of my savings into a new account in a private trust under my name, with Helen listed as trustee advisor. No shared logins, no paper statements. All notifications routed through her office. Step 3, update my will and all beneficiary designations. Jason had been named as sole heir since his father died. That ended now. We'd shift everything to my nephew Michael, who'd never asked for a cent, and add bequests for my book club, the neighborhood library, and Helen's clinic. Step 4, set a trap. Jason's ego would do the work for us. We just had to give him the rope. I'd bait him with a phony paperwork errand at the bank, invite him under the pretense of signing off on something minor. But we'd have the evidence ready, the timing perfect, and the audience carefully chosen. Helen underlined the words, public, legal, unshakable. That night, I tucked the original plan into the manila folder, labeled it, in case I forget who I am. Because that's what this really was. Not just protecting my money, but remembering that I am still the woman who built a life from pay stubs and ledger sheets, not someone waiting to be erased. I started with the truth I could prove. The first breadcrumb was already waiting for me, the bank call from September 2nd. I'd requested a transcript, and they'd sent it over 2 days later. Ms. Ward remained sole owner on all accounts. It read, I circled the line in red. Under it, the confirmation code, 78A9. I printed 2 copies and filed one under a fresh tab in the manila folder, proof of ownership. That folder stayed in the locked drawer of my desk, the one Jason always joked about, saying I was stuck in the paper age. Next, I logged into my Amazon account and found something I hadn't noticed before, An order for $1,287.49 placed on September 6th. Cordless tools, a drill set, some digital thermometer that looked like it belonged in a commercial kitchen. The shipping address? Jason's house. My heart didn't race this time. I just took a screenshot and added it to the folder. The folder was growing, and so was my resolve. Every file, every printout, they weren't just evidence. They were boundaries. Physical proof that I saw what was happening, and I wasn't pretending anymore. That night, I slid it under the same cedar box where I kept my wedding ring. One was a symbol of trust given freely. The other was a symbol of trust revoked, with cause. Jason thought I was forgetful. He thought I wouldn't notice a few hundred here, 1,000 there, but I noticed. And now I had a trail that would lead him right to the moment he'd lose everything. For 2 nights, I sat at my desk with the lights low and the curtains drawn, just me and the hum of the old desktop Jason once offered to replace. Too slow for modern life, he'd said. That slow machine became my scalpel. I logged into every account. Banking, credit, utilities, even the grocery rewards app. I made a list of every login, saved every session ID, and downloaded monthly statements going back 6 months. Each one told a story. One card had been used at a restaurant I hadn't visited in years, on Jason's birthday. Another showed a hardware store transaction at 8:44 a.m., while I was still asleep, recovering from a sinus infection. Then came the big one. I used the bank's secure message center to request a list of all authorized users tied to my name. They emailed back a PDF. I opened it slowly. 2 names I didn't recognize, and one I did. Jason Ward. Except, here's the thing, I never added him. Not officially, not with my signature. And just like that, the line between suspicion and certainty vanished. I zoomed in on the attached signature authorization form. There it was. My name, scribbled in blocky, awkward script. A hand trying too hard to look neat. It didn't match anything I'd ever signed in 30 years of working with financial forms. But I'd seen that style before, on a birthday card. One Jason wrote to his daughter, where he joked, "You get your handwriting from me, sorry." I opened the card from the junk drawer, compared the loops. The way he formed the W. Identical. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I just printed the form, highlighted the signature, and added it to the folder. By midnight, I had what I needed. Proof of unauthorized access. A likely forgery. A paper trail of slow theft, dressed up as, quote, family trust. I powered down the computer, leaned back in my chair, and whispered the words that made me feel clean again. I see you, Jason, and I remember everything. 2 days later, I gave him a chance, just one. We were in the kitchen. He dropped by unannounced again, claiming he was in the neighborhood. He always said that, like, I couldn't check Google Maps and see that his office was 12 miles away. I slid the Amazon receipt across the counter, said nothing at first. Jason barely glanced at it before rolling his eyes. "Oh, come on, Mom, it's just tools. I needed them for the garage. I was going to tell you." I waited. Let the silence stretch. He shifted, rubbed the back of his neck. "Look, I lost my promotion, okay? I didn't want to worry you." There it was. The start of the story. He leaned in, lowering his voice like we were in on a secret together. "The bills piled up. Sarah's hours got cut. We're drowning over there, Mom. I'm just trying to keep us afloat." I almost believed him. His eyes were tired, his shirt wrinkled, and for a second I saw the boy who used to cry when he lost a toy under the couch. But then I remembered that boy never lied to me. This man, the one standing in my kitchen, justifying theft with practiced ease, he had convinced himself he deserved it. Not just the tools, the accounts, the legacy. My trust. He called it borrowing, but he'd never asked, never planned to repay. It wasn't desperation that scared me. It was entitlement. Jason thought his fall was my responsibility. He thought failure meant he was owed. He had a reason, but it wasn't an excuse. "Okay," I said softly, sliding the receipt back into the folder. I just wanted to know, and that was the moment I felt the first true shift in power, because he didn't know what else I had in that folder. He didn't know I was done trying to be the mother he wanted. I was becoming the mother he would regret underestimating. Desperation makes people sloppy. Entitlement makes them arrogant. Jason had both, a perfect recipe for leaving behind breadcrumbs he didn't even see. I spent the next 24 hours building the timeline, transaction by transaction, screenshot by screenshot. First receipt, a bank alert, flagged under irregular activity. There'd been a pending transfer request from my main account to a vendor name I didn't recognize, JW Solutions. When I Googled it, I found nothing but an empty domain. But the recipient email? jasonword1979@icloud.com. I downloaded the alert, highlighted the timestamp, September 7th, 3 p.m., one day after the Amazon charge. He was getting bold. Second receipt, a Lyft ride at 2:14 a.m., September 3rd. Pickup, Jason's house. Drop off, my bank branch. Yes, the same branch he used to work near before they downsized him. Why would someone take a rideshare to a closed bank in the middle of the night? Because they weren't using the front door. He was trying to change something. Maybe signature cards. Maybe documentation. Maybe just snooping. He didn't know I had that receipt. It had been emailed to me by accident. Jason had once used my email for a Lyft promo. I never removed it. Now it was evidence. Third receipt, a text message. Screenshot sent by accident. Jason meant to forward it to his buddy Mark, but sent it to our old family thread instead, which only he and I still had access to. It said, "She won't notice till it's too late. Helen's the only one who ever made her nervous, and she's retired." He'd forgotten Helen's last name. Forgotten that she wasn't retired. Just smarter than him. Forgotten that I still read everything. I printed the screenshot, dated it, filed it behind the lift in the transfer. 3 puzzle pieces. 3 points of contact. Enough to prove motive. He was broke. He was cornered. And he thought I'd never fight back. He still thought I was trying to protect the peace. What he didn't see, what he couldn't see, was that I was already preparing for the confrontation that would shatter the illusion completely. I wasn't building a case. I was building a mirror, one that would show him exactly who he'd become. Helen called me just after 10 a.m. She didn't say hello, just, "We found something." I drove straight to her office, didn't even change out of the cardigan Jason once called sad little Sunday wear. Let them keep thinking I'm harmless. She met me at the door with a folder in hand. Her face was set. Not angry, not shaken, just ready. Inside was a copy of a durable power of attorney document filed with the bank 2 weeks ago. It bore my full name in awkward cursive, not just my name, my signature. It also bore a notary stamp. But something was off. Helen pointed to it. "This notary number isn't registered in the county database. It's fake or stolen." She flipped the page. "The ink used? Blue gel, commercially available. The exact kind found on." She reached into a plastic evidence sleeve. "This," she said, pulling out a photo. "Jason's pen. The one from his kitchen counter. Same pen, same color, same jagged drag on the downstroke of the Carrier. Barra's. He hadn't just forged a name, he forged control. With that document, if the bank hadn't flagged it, he could have drained every account. He could have moved money, sold property, even changed the beneficiaries without me knowing." Helen said quietly, "He tried to turn your entire life into a legal fiction." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt done. Done pretending this was fixable. Done thinking he'd snap out of it. Done holding space for a son who viewed me as a vault, waiting to be cracked. I picked up the forged document, held it between my fingers, and felt my heart slow. Steady. He'd filed a lie, but I had the truth, and now I had proof. "I think," I said to Helen, "it's time we stop preparing." She nodded. "We go public, not out of vengeance, out of necessity." Because this wasn't just a family wound anymore, it was criminal. Jason had tried to make me legally invisible, but now I would make sure he was legally exposed. But that night, the weight found me. I couldn't sleep in my bed. I tried. God knows I tried. but the sheets felt foreign, like they belonged to a different woman. The one who still believed her son might come around. The one who still made enough potato salad at family gatherings to feed a football team, just in case he showed up. I slept in the den instead. The couch wasn't comfortable, but at least it didn't smell like history. I wrapped myself in a blanket that had once lived in Jason's old room, back when he still called me Mama and brought me dandelions from the schoolyard, and I cried for that boy. For the version of him I raised, who used to be tender and full of wonder. I cried for myself, too, for having ignored the signs for so long, for mistaking his hunger for closeness as love instead of calculation. At some point around 4 a.m., the tears stopped, not because I felt better, but because I had something stronger than grief, clarity. He'd taken my trust, my privacy, my financial security, and tried to wrap it all up in legal documents that would have erased me. And for what? Tools, tuition, ego. I stood up, poured myself a glass of water, and walked past the mirror in the hallway. For the first time in months, I saw myself clearly. Not a victim, not a burden, not a poor old woman clinging to control. I was sharp, I was awake, and I had outgrown my own silence. The man who used to crawl into my lap when he had nightmares now wanted to steal my name from my own accounts. He thought I'd fade. But I'd waited my whole life to learn that power doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it comes with patience. And patience, in the right hands, is armor. I waited 3 days, long enough for Jason to relax, to think the conversation about the Amazon charge had worked. He even sent me a cheerful photo of Lily holding a drawing she'd made, a stick figure labeled Grandma's House. The irony didn't sting anymore. On the 4th morning, I called him. "Hey, sweetheart," I said. Breezy, warm, practiced. "I was thinking of doing a little birthday roast for you this year. Just something small. Family, a few neighbors. Nothing big." He hesitated. Sure, I guess that'd be fun." "You've done so much for me lately," I said sweetly. "You deserve to be celebrated." I let him hear me smile. I let him believe. "Oh," I added, "and afterward I was thinking we could just swing by the bank. I need to sign off on something. Little paperwork thing. You know how they are with accounts and aging and blah blah." He didn't ask questions. Of course he didn't. He thought it was handled already. He smiled like a man walking into a surprise party. He didn't realize the party was for the truth. I mailed formal invitations, just enough people to make it real. His friend Mark, a couple of family members who still thought Jason walked on water, and Helen, of course. The roast was just an excuse, a decoy. The real event would happen at 4:15 p.m., September 10th, in the back room of the Elm Street branch. I'd already reserved the private meeting space. "Birthday errand," I told the manager. He loves feeling important. Helen arranged for the branch compliance officer to be present, quietly. No threats, no drama, just a notepad and a calm face. I picked out a sensible outfit. The same cardigan Jason once said made me look like someone's great aunt from 1910. I wore it anyway, because sometimes the best armor is the one they don't see coming. This wasn't just strategy, it was performance. And Jason, he was about to be handed the script he'd written for himself. We arrived 5 minutes early. I held the door for him like always. Let him go first. He winked and said, "You really didn't have to make a whole thing out of this, Mom." I didn't answer, just smiled. The teller greeted me with the kind of politeness reserved for long-time customers with large balances and quiet reputations. "Mrs. Ward, the meeting room's ready, just down the hall." Jason raised an eyebrow but followed, still joking under his breath about banks and paperwork and how old people love red tape. The meeting room was small, 2 windows, fluorescent lights, and a door that clicked shut like a lock being tested. At the table, Helen Park, seated and calm. The branch manager, clipboard in hand. Jason's friend Mark, who clearly thought he was there for birthday cake. And me. I walked in last and placed my manila folder at the head of the table. Jason frowned. "What's going on?" Helen stood. "Mr. Ward, thank you for coming. We're here to address some discrepancies in your recent attempts to gain access to Ms. Ward's financial accounts." His head snapped toward me. "Mom, what is this? Some kind of ambush?" "Sit," I said, in the voice I used when he was 8 and had broken a neighbor's window. He sat. The branch manager cleared his throat. "Before we begin, I need to inform everyone this conversation is being documented per compliance protocol." Jason let out a laugh. "Sharp? Forced? You're kidding me. This is insane. I didn't." Helen slid a copy of the forged power of attorney across the table. "Do you recognize this form?" He looked at it, then at me, then back down. I don't, because our records show it was filed under your name and supported by a notary stamp that doesn't exist in our system." She paused. "Forgery is a felony." Jason glanced at Mark, who looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. I opened the folder and laid out the first piece of evidence, the September 2nd call transcript. "I'm the sole owner," I said. "Always have been." His face began to change. Not with guilt, but calculation. He was already looking for a way out, but the room was too small, too official, too well lit. And for once, everyone was watching. Jason blinked fast, like he was still trying to decide which version of himself to be: the confused son, the outraged victim, or the suddenly cooperative man who just wants to make things right. I didn't give him the chance. I opened the manila folder and slid the first page across the table. "Here's the bank's confirmation that I'm the sole owner on all accounts," dated September 2nd, with the call transcript and the confirmation code, 78A9. He stared at it, jaw tight. Next, I slid over the Amazon order. September 6th, $1,287.49 charged to my account. Tools delivered to your home. Not exactly subtle. He didn't look up. Then came the forged power of attorney, the one with my name and a notary stamp that never existed. Helen tapped the signature. "We have a handwriting comparison. It matches notes you've written on birthday cards. Same pen, same ink." He tried to laugh, but it came out thin and dry. "This is ridiculous. You're dramatizing this." I didn't flinch. I pulled out the Lyft receipt. September 3rd, 2:14 a.m., ride from your house to this branch, and the bank was closed. "What were you doing here in the middle of the night?" Jason opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I set down the final page. The text message. "You won't notice till it's too late." Helen leaned in. She noticed. For the first time, Jason looked rattled. His face had gone from smug to pale, then to something in between, calculation laced with panic. "You all act like I'm some criminal. I was just trying to help manage things. Families do that. I was just—" The branch manager interrupted. "This isn't about family. This is about fraud. You used falsified documents and unauthorized charges. That puts you in direct violation of both federal banking law and elder financial protection statutes." Jason turned to me then, really looked at me, as if he finally saw that I wasn't bluffing. I didn't look away. He'd spent months assuming I wouldn't push back. That I didn't know the rules. That I couldn't prove what I'd already known in my bones. But here we were. Each document a nail. Each lie buried and exposed. He came to the table with swagger. Now, he sat silent in the seat I used to fill, the one marked powerless. Helen didn't wait. She picked up her phone and dialed the bank's internal compliance hotline, reading from the forgery report with the kind of calm that comes from doing things by the book. "This is in reference to a suspected fraudulent power of attorney filed at the Elm Street branch on or around September 3rd, she said. Subject, Jason Ward. Elder exploitation statutes may apply. The branch manager's face turned gray. Jason finally stood, hands raised, trying to reclaim the floor. Hold on. This is crazy. I didn't. This is just a misunderstanding. Helen didn't even pause. The notary stamp number is invalid. Ink composition analysis matches pens from the subject's residence. My client never signed this form. We are also in possession of a text message implying premeditation. Jason looked at Mark for help, but Mark had his arms folded and his legs crossed, like someone trying to disappear into the chair. The manager stepped out, returned 2 minutes later, and said quietly, "Security would like Mr. Ward to step into the adjoining room." "The compliance investigator from headquarters is on the line," Jason laughed. "Too loud, too fast. You're kidding me. You're acting like this is some kind of criminal case." Then the phone rang. The branch manager answered, put it on speaker, and nodded. "Yes, I have Jason Ward in the room." A voice on the other end, steady, clipped, professional, spoke. "We have a recorded call placed by Mr. Ward on September 3rd at 9:43 a.m. in which he requests to update account authority due to mental decline of the account holder. Is this accurate?" Silence. Then came the voice again, from a playback file on the other end. It was Jason, clear as a bell. "Yeah, she's not really all there anymore. I'm just trying to keep the accounts in order before things get messy." He closed his eyes, his jaw locked. "I never said she was. I didn't mean," he stammered. But the room didn't need his meaning. It had his intent, and now it had his voice. I watched the shift happen. The same man who mocked me for shaking hands and birthday sweaters was now surrounded by his own words, on paper and in stereo. He thought the power sat in my purse. He thought it was in the money, but it had always been in my silence. And now that silence was over. The branch manager stood slowly. "Mr. Ward, we'll need you to step outside while we complete the formal fraud documentation." Jason didn't move. He just sat there, frozen, like a man trying to pause the moment with stillness, but the moment had already passed him. Security appeared in the doorway, not aggressive, just present. That was all it took. He stood, shoulders stiff, and gave me one last look. Not regret, not even hate, just disbelief. He never thought I'd make it this far. Once he was gone, the branch manager turned to me gently. "Mrs. Ward, I'd like to personally walk you through your options." We spent the next 45 minutes reviewing every account, every authorized user, every potential vulnerability. Jason's name? Erased. Not just from accounts, from the narrative. We added a private, irrevocable trust for my savings. Helen notarized it right there. Beneficiaries updated. Instructions recorded. A transfer on death deed filed for the house. Not one penny, not one object, not one signature left exposed. While the paperwork was printing, a young teller slipped into the room with a box of tissues and whispered, "My grandma went through something similar. Good for you." Another one, a boy in his 20s, passed Helen a sticky note with the words, "He was bragging about those accounts last week. Said he had early access." By the time we walked back into the lobby, I could feel it, the shift. 2 women from my neighborhood were at the counter. One of them raised an eyebrow when she saw Jason being escorted toward the parking lot by security. They turned and saw me. I nodded once. Not proud, not smug, just done hiding. Word travels fast in towns like this. By dinner, my phone buzzed with 5 missed calls from Jason's wife, 2 texts from my sister, "Did something happen?" and 1 voicemail from his supervisor at the insurance office. We received an inquiry from the bank regarding Jason's access to elder accounts. We'll need to follow up. There's a funny thing that happens when power returns to your side. People who used to shrug suddenly start whispering. People who once doubted you now want to know how you did it. But I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about how, for the first time in years, I could sit on my own couch, put my feet up, and know that every dollar, every signature, every decision belonged to me again. No explanations, no apologies, no son watching over my shoulder with a calculator